Hi, good morning. My name is Jay Oza, and like to welcome you to Speech Talk Live, episode 34. I'm the host of this show, and today, for whatever reason, I'm the only one that's on this show. So it's going to be a fairly quick show. So we're just going to talk about some things about speaking, and if people join in, then we'll have a discussion. Otherwise, I will just continue the normal agenda that we have for this show. And this happens sometimes. People have things that come up on a short notice. So we'll see. Maybe some people will pop in and then we'll have a discussion. But otherwise, we'll just continue with the content that I have put together. So a little bit about myself. I am based out of Hazlet, New Jersey. It's about 50 miles from New York City. And I kind of do three things. One is I mentor this Coursera course called Introduction to Public Speaking. I've been doing this now for probably close to 2 years now. And originally it started out by my taking the course when it was first offered. And at that time, I had taken public speaking courses in the past, but never really took it seriously. Some of it at work. I joined Toastmasters, did a lot of stuff, but I never really focused on it the way I did when I took this course. And I just liked the idea of taking a MOOC course, massively online, open online course.
Good
So
morning.
yeah, Julie, I'm in
Sorry I'm
introduction.
late.
Yeah. Do we want to start again? Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to start. I'm just going to just let this go on, and I'll just start because I didn't know whether you were going to be on since I didn't hear from you, and I know there was a storm here, so I thought maybe something came up.
Oh, thanks. No, I just had to get my husband's breakfast ready,
Oh,
and
okay, sure.
everything took a little longer than I thought.
All right, no problem, no problem. So let's do
Thank you.
this. I'm going to start again because I didn't know whether I just assumed that something came up and then you might pop in later on. So, okay, that's fine. I just was going through my intro. So I'm going to just take a brief pause and start all over again, okay?
Okay, thanks.
And just mute your line so that way I don't hear any background noise.
Shuffling, sure.
Oops. What happened? It went away. The mute. The mute is not on still.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know what happened there. All right. Okay, so let me just take a brief pause and I'll start.
Sorry,
Hi. Oh, what happened?
Rich is calling me. I'll be right back. I'm sorry. I'm on the hangout. I'm on the hangout. All right, coming.
Okay, you want to mute your line? Okay. If you have to go, just keep it mute and then you can just attend to it and then I can. Okay, so I'll go. Hi, welcome to Speech Talk Live. This is episode number 34. My name is Jay Oza and I'm the host of this show. And as usual, we have Julie Wu Finkelstein on with me. And Julie's a mentor for the Coursera course called Introduction to Public Speaking. I'll let her introduce it. And I'm also a mentor for the same course. So I'm based out of Hazlet, New Jersey. It's about 50 miles from New York City. And currently, I'm kind of in a transition mode from what I was doing previously. So I'm focusing on three things right now. One is this mentoring. I mentor this course, as I mentioned, the Introduction to Public Speaking. And what that does is it allows me to learn, teach, and really be on top of public speaking. The other thing that I do is that I coach people who have to give high stakes or high opportunity speeches for whatever situation, whether it's could be a conversation with an executive, a job interview, or a speech in front of a small group or even a large audience. So, and the third thing that I'm currently working on is a book on my speaker's journey that's currently in first draft that Julie is helping me out with. She has given me some feedback, and I really appreciate that, Julie, for doing that. So it's going to go through another couple of drafts, and then I think I will have it get an editor and get it published soon, because there's no point in sitting on it for too long. It's better to get it out there. So that's some of the things that I'm working on. And what we try to do on this is a part of the learning community that we created last year. And this is an opportunity for people to come here and discuss public speaking. And one of the things that I keep telling people is that public speaking is something you got to do it pretty much all the time, because you can't wait till an important speech comes up. It's too late. You just can't do it. I've not seen anybody. If you are able to do it and you do it well, maybe the speech wasn't really that important, because speaking is not that easy. And the more I do it, the more I realize how difficult it is. And obviously, Julie can give her input on what she thinks of it. She's been doing it for quite some time with the focus, with the intense focus for the last year or so. And what we try to do, this show, Speech Talk Live, it's our opportunity to teach, learn, share, support, and that's what we do. This is our 34th episode, and like I said, we're in this to learn, we're to teach, to coach, to share, to practice, and lastly, to support. We want to create a trusting environment so that nobody's ridiculed, everybody feels safe. And this is the place to try it, because nobody's going to get hurt, nobody's going to die. That hasn't happened yet, so far as I know. Some people haven't showed up, so I don't know what has happened to them. But as far as I tell, I think they're alive and kicking somewhere. But that's what this show is. And today, I had to put this show together today pretty quickly, because I had a lot of things going on. But I will see. I think it's a good show. We're going to primarily focus on discussion, and I recorded 3 videos that I wanted people to look at to have a discussion around. So I'm really counting on Julie to really add to the discussion segment. And the first segment we're going to do is about experience. You got to speak to people's experience if you want to be an effective speaker. So I'll introduce the topic, and then I'd like Julie to give her input. The second segment is the one I believe that if you want to be a good to great speaker, you got to be a student. That means you got to be constantly looking for examples, whether it's on TV, whether it's on internet, live, whatever, one-on-one conversation. There are just excellent examples everywhere. Just like there are excellent examples, there are terrible examples too. So you have to be looking for it. You got to be a student. Like if you see somebody giving a bad speech, you should ask yourself, how would I make it better? And that's what I try to do whenever I see somebody give a bad speech or use like I'll talk about the debate I was watching last night. So I'll leave that for that segment. And the last one is something I picked up from this podcast, Road to TED, where they had one speaker. His name was Brian Kramer. And he was telling the hosts on that show that one of the important advice that he received from TED coaches was to begin with the end, which sounds simple, but evidently that's the most important tip that he said he received. And I'd like to have a discussion around that. So that's the show for today. And at this point, I'll like to have Julie do a quick introduction, and then we'll move on to our 3-minute speech segment. So Julie, take it over.
Thanks, Jay. As Jay says, I'm Julie Wu Finkelstein. And today it's snowing outside, beautiful white snow in Stanford. So you people who are in Australia, hope you get to hear this anyways. And yeah, my name is Julie, and today I'm going to focus on that. I'm writing a book as well, inspired by Jay. And my book is actually going to be released in 2 versions. actually in two books. The first book is a workbook. It's for the 12 practices using stretches, yin yoga stretches for your body and mind, evolution. I'll go more into that. Also, I do workshops online, and they're open source. That's my paradigm. I have one on Saturday, one on Wednesday evening, and one on Monday morning. I'm looking into doing maybe monthly, more intense workshops, theme-based. So if you're interested in anything, please give me a call or email me. Thank you. Thanks, Jay.
All right, Julie, thank you very much. Okay, that was quick and brief. Okay, so I'm going to take a brief pause and then introduce the 3-minute segment. Okay, welcome back. My name is Jay Osa, and we have Julie Finkelstein, and this is Speech Talk Live, episode number 34. And at this point in our show, we use what I call a 3-minute speech segment, and this is sort of like the freestyle speaking, right? You can pick any topic you want and speak for 3 minutes, and the whole purpose of this 3-minute talk is that at the end of it, people should be saying, hey, I want to know more. Now, not saying that's going to happen all the time, but that's what you should try to do. But sometimes it's not possible. So that's what I like to say. If you're going to speak for 3 minutes, then people would say, yeah, you know what? I want you to come and give a 15-minute speech. So you have to be very, in the 3 minutes, you have to capture a lot. That's what you want to do, because sometimes people don't have more than 3 minutes. 3 minutes is it. At that point, you should be able to convey as much as possible that they need to know. Okay, so today I want to talk about a lesson that I had to teach my son. And it was an important lesson that I hope he remembers, because it was pretty significant. So let me just give you a little background of what happened. So I live in Hazlitt, that's in Monmouth County, and we have these special schools for high school that call it academies. And one of them that he expressed interest, and perhaps he didn't, that's another thing, is a high tech. Now, high tech is a very prestigious school. It's ranked always in the top 5 in the country. So I took him there last year when he was in 7th grade, just so that he gets introduced to it, see what it was like, talk to students, the teachers. They were like an information session, which they do a good job. It lasts for 2 hours. And it's a pretty intense program, and it's a very selective school. So you have to take a test, they look at your grades and all that. Now, I just wanted him to get a feel for it. I wasn't putting any kind of pressure on him to say, listen, you have to work hard. I wasn't even telling him. I kind of left it up to him, because I don't want to be one of these parents, I don't know, lion dad, I guess, if there's a word like that. I don't want to be a lion dad. There's a tiger mom. I don't want to be a lion dad. So I said, listen, if you're interested, you're going to have to, be responsible for it, because this is, I mean, personally, I would love to go to that school, but I guess I'm too old now to go to that. In fact, every time I go, it seems like I want to go to it more than he does. So anyway, so this year, that was 7th grade. In 8th grade, that's when it gets serious. So I couldn't make it. So my wife had to take him, and that's where I left it. Thought that they had everything under control. So there was a test that they have to take. So I bring him there last week, was it? Last Saturday, I think it was. And I don't see his name there. So I'm like, I told the woman that was there, I said, oh, you have to go see the principal. So I take him, I said, we have to go to see the principal, because we didn't even have our ID. Because I was just focused on getting him there, dropping him off, and then coming back. So the principal said, oh, does he have access to the portal so I can see whether he's a legitimate 8th grader? And I showed it to him. Then he said, okay, let's see if, where have you registered for it? And that's when his name didn't appear. So principal said, sorry, you can't take the test because you had to register. I said, but he attended the info session. Wasn't that sufficient? He submitted some kind of a paper from what I remember. He said, no, you actually had to register for that online. So I said, look, I'm sorry. Evidently, that's not what I knew. My son didn't tell me anything about that. So on the way back, I told my son, I said, listen, this was a lesson. Okay. It was very embarrassing for me because my job as a parent was to just take you there and pick you up. Everything else you were supposed to take care of as far as registering online. Because if I had to do that, that means that I'm more interested in you going to that school than you are. And if you had no interest in it, then this is what happens. So I said, let this be a lesson to you that if you don't take things seriously, don't count on your parents to do it. Your job is to tell us what you need from me, whether it's money, which I'm sure that's always the case when you are not earning any money, or transportation. Like, Dad, can you drop me off and then pick me up? Besides that, you got to take responsibility. I said, you're in eighth grade now. You got to step up to the plate and take responsibility. And, he was apologetic. Oh, I'll never let that happen. Now we'll see whether that remains that way or not. But that was a lesson for him. I said, listen, you're not going to get too many of these lessons. Now, what this means is there's no guarantee that you were going to get into the academy because it's very competitive, but you didn't even get a chance to even take the test. That's embarrassing, I said. And I said, oh, I wanted you to at least take the test so you find out, how difficult it was and what you needed to do. And I said, if you had gotten in, then we could have decided whether it made sense for you to go there or not. But now we're not even going to get that chance. So that was a lesson that my son learned the hard way. Julie?
Thank you. That was very inspiring about accountability. Today, I'm going to share. Hi, my name is Julie. That kind of warms me up. So today I'm going to share the 12 stretches, the 12 practices I have talked about. We all have stress in our lives, and we all have like health issues or mental stress. And then once we get those problems taken care of, we want to achieve some level of success. And I think that's where most people are at, but there's actually another level, and that is to live who we really are authentically. So I would say the 3 progresses in our human life today for me is healing or bringing my body up to a healthy state, so healthiness. The second level is being able to navigate in this world to be successful in my goals. And I'll just call that responding to the world in a successful way. And finally, living who we really are inside and out. I'll call that authentication. So these 12 practices are actually, I used to call them 10 stretches, are stretches that is provided to me from my teacher friend, Everett Ogawa. He runs a practice which includes a school in Chicago called Integral Body Works. These stretches have a strong lineage of both Eastern traditions in the energy of Zen, martial arts, energetic healing, and Taoist philosophy, and also the Western traditions of anatomy, the forces of gravity, understanding our nervous system, and they're integrated together through a series of teachers. These stretches are also designed to be what I call progressive, or peeling the layers of onion. In our tradition that I study under Everett, the body and mind are not separate. So these stretches then opens up the body progressively deeper and deeper. And in doing that, it provides us with the energy that we naturally have to not only to go to healing our headaches or backaches and neck aches or knee problems, to being able to have that energy available in our emotional mental sphere to be able to define our goals, be clear about goals, and focus our energy to do that. And finally, to even realize who we really are. In the spirit of sharing these stretches, I'm going to just read them to you to honor the 3-minute limitation. So the first one is preparing, just centering yourself, taking a nice deep breath, aligning with gravity. The second one is forward bend. The third one is sitting straddle. The fourth one is kneeling lunge or the dragon. the fifth, I'm losing count, but here it says the fourth one, or because I started with 0, it's downward dog. And then it's spinal twist, lying down, the pigeon. The 7 is Uddiyana Bandha. The 8 is the butterfly. And the 9 is the 10, plow or the snail. And finally, the closing pose is Shavasana. Now, I think Shavasana is very important, the last one, because it's like taking the money to the bank so it accumulate interest. In summary, that these stretches are to be done mindfully, slowly, gently, and deeply. The sequence is the key. The sequence is progressively opening up the layers of our human body, the layers of our onion of our body. And keep practicing. Practice as if though it's your daily meditation, and you will heal, you will succeed, and you will authenticate your life. Thank you.
Oh, that was excellent. Yeah, that was a really good speech. The one thing that Julie, that I'll offer to you is that when we do one of these segments, if you want to use any of those segments to flesh this out more, like group certain, like not maybe go through all 12 of them, but let's say, okay, today I'm going to focus on back, and here are the 3 poses that I want to talk about and why they are so important. So that's available. That's all. That you can do that. So if you want to do like next week, if take one of the segments and go deeper into each of these, that's part of your book, and you want to kind of get a practice of talking about it, then certainly let me know if you want to use any of the segments to talk more about what you're working on. Okay. All right. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to take a brief pause, and then we will go into our first segment. Hi, welcome back. My name is Jay Oza, and this is Speech Talk Live, episode 34, and I have Julie Wu Finkelstein with me today. And in this segment, I want to talk about it's a discussion topic that is like, what is one thing that makes you an effective speaker? Now, one thing I always like to say, speaking is very difficult because there's so many things you have to know. See, writing, it's difficult, right? Because you have to learn writing. Speaking in one sense is easy because we learn that right from the time we were born. Not exactly like that, but you know what I'm talking about. We start learning how to speak, to communicate, to get along, to get things done. So we're constantly learning how to speak. Writing has to be taught, right? But then once you get to a certain level, writing isn't that difficult. It's always difficult, but speaking at a high level gets more difficult because there are so many other things involved in speaking. And you start talking about, you've got to work about your content, the voice, the gestures, the presence. I mean, it's mind-boggling. I wrote about this, and there are so many things every day that comes up. Like sometimes speaking is not even that important, right? But one thing that is very important is, like, if you have to pick one thing, what is that one thing that you gotta have? Otherwise, your speech essentially is a waste of time. And what I've come up with is that a speech has to speak to an audience's experience. And when you look at any effective speakers, they're not great speakers. For example, I like to use this example, but let's take Sarah Palin. Sarah Palin is not a great speaker, but she is effective because when she's speaking to a particular crowd, she's speaking to their experience. Like they've been, tossed around, they've been ridiculed. And she does that so well, that grievance these people have, that somehow the elite are looking down on them and she represents them. So she really speaks to their experience and their anger that, we got to do something because these people out there, they don't really respect us. And she really does a good job, that anger that she brings out. And I think she's very effective in that. So she may not be a great speaker academically speaking, or when you compare her to, but as far as her effectiveness concerned, I would give her a 10 out of 10. She's very effective. She does an excellent job. And there's something to learn from that. But you don't have to be a bad speaker to be effective. But I'm just pointing out that speaking to people's experience is really critical to your success. You could be a great speaker, but if you're not speaking to people's experience, then you're not going to resonate. You just gave a great speech, but it didn't achieve anything. So I mean, let's take a look at some of the great speeches, like Martin Luther King. When he spoke at the Lincoln Memorial, I Have a Dream, he was speaking to people's experience, both white and black. And that's why that speech is considered one of the greatest speeches given. You always look at, so I've given two examples, right? Sarah Palin and Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King is an acknowledged one of the greatest speakers of all time, because he's not only a great orator, but he also spoke to people's experience. Nobody would put Sarah Palin in that category, but I would think that Sarah Palin is also very effective when she's speaking to her audience, because she really speaks to their experience. So one of the things, and I picked this up, by the way, from reading this book by Saul Alinsky, that people always criticize that he's like a radical, but the guy actually has written a very good book called Rules for Radical. And it's basically a book about haves versus have-nots, what you have to do when people are in power. And this is a book that both Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, in fact, Hillary Clinton wrote her, I believe, her undergraduate thesis on this book, Saul Alinsky. I think it's on the web somewhere. I think it was in the late 60s that she wrote about Saul Alinsky and this particular book, Rules for Radicals. And what he says in that book is that about community organizers, right? These are the people who are fighting the power. So they're have-nots. And one of the person that was heavily influenced by Saul Alinsky's methods was Barack Obama. And one of the things he tells him is a community organizer, you have to have this ability to speak to people's experience. Otherwise, you cannot organize people. They're not going to, if you can't relate to them, they're not going to relate to you. And you cannot organize them to do anything. And that's where Barack Obama honed his skill and speaking to people, audience's experience. And that's why, many consider him to be one of the, outstanding speakers today. So that's what I need to focus on, you need to focus on, we all need to focus on. The first thing you start is that before you give a speech to, whether it's in sales, whether it's, dating or anything, right? Do you know their experience? Are you relatable? Because if you're not, you could give a great speech, but it's not going to do anything. So, Julie, what do you think? I mean, let me ask you this when you have given a speech, do you actually look at like people's experience, where they're coming from, and how do you find out what their experiences are? And then how do you turn it into a speech so that you become more relatable to them when you're speaking? Like, for example, you're going to be giving speeches on stretches. How do you speak to people's experience so that they can relate to you? Go ahead.
Oh, Jay, I think this was really instructive and huge theme. Merits a lot of discussion. The key phrase that I got out of it, and I'll explain that, and I'll answer your question too, is only, I think what you say is only use your experiences to relate. Use your experiences to relate to this. That is very important. So what I got out of it is, first thing is, if you speak into your audience, do some research or soul search to find out what is their experience base. And then develop a sense of empathy, which is an emotional connection. And then use their experiences as a baseline to create a perspective. And only then do you share your experience, because they always say you want to share your experience and you want to be vulnerable. But I think based on what you're saying is not only do you want to be vulnerable, you want to be relatable. So you have to share your experience using their experience as a base for commonality. And out of that come the resonance, the acceptance. And then I think you're right that it's only when they can relate to you that you have an opportunity to. Another key phrase I really like from your speech is you get to move the needle only then. You can shift. So the way that I was instructive, I learned this as instruction. After listening to this speech, I changed my opening. I don't know if you noticed or not, but I did say, instead of saying this stretches does this, I said, we all have stress. We all have physical problems. We all want to succeed, and we all want to be who we really are. So I didn't have time to do research, but I was able to do some soul searching, and that was their experience that I want to, the base of their experience that I want to use to connect to them. So that's how I used what you were talking about. But I think there is some really good points here. Like if I was to use a Jay's technique of a methodology, one is do some research and soul search for their experience. Use that as a base to establish empathy. Use that as a base to create a perspective. Find your own personal experiences that is relatable from that perspective. Create the relationship. Then share the message, and then they can resonate. So that's what I got out of that.
Right. I think in marketing, they call this like an avatar. You got to kind of find your, like an avatar, right? That's the person that your show should be speaking to, this so-called person. Like, let's say we're doing this show, Speech Talk Live. So we need to find that one person that's kind of representative of that avatar that we're talking to. That who would that be? Someone who's a professional, probably out of college, who is working, but has who wants to improve their speaking skill. Because from what I gather from looking at a lot of the intro speeches, what I get is that a lot of people want to improve their speaking primarily for work related. Nobody's ever said I want to improve speaking so I can find, date well or something like that. Doesn't come up much. It seems like most of the people who want to improve their speaking skills want to do it so that they can get ahead in their career. Some of them have that fear that they want to, as a teacher, as whatever they're doing, that a lot of them want to advance, but they feel like without this skill, that they're not going to be that successful. That's the avatar that I have come up with for this particular course. The people that take this course, I don't know if you've gone through if you review a lot of the introduction speeches, but like for example, like you're talking about stretches. So since I'm the only one on this call, you can make yourself relate to what you're saying and say, well, Jay, listen, I understand that, you in the past you'd mentioned about your back problem. So like bring it in there to draw me in to you. Like saying, in this case, I'm the only one, so you can mention my name. But if there's a larger audience, then you can say, well, I'm sure many of you here have back problem, and some of you would like to, be more active and like to play golf or go skiing or do more active, like jogging and all that, right? And these people have back problems that prevent them from doing that. So now you're speaking to their experience because you're going to be talking about stretches. Now, you don't just tell them start stretching, saying, listen, you want to start slowly and then see whether you don't want to do too much too quickly, but little by little, you can be the best judge, because pain is one thing. You can never know what somebody's feeling. Like even doctors can't determine how much pain I'm feeling. It's something that's very difficult. They can be the best judge. And then you become much more relatable. You're speaking. So there's not only experience is one thing, you also have to speak their language. So experience is fine, but then how do you really get into their head? That language is very important. What is the language that's going to make sense? If you start using some of the new wave language, that's not going to be relatable to them. Like that's something that we were talking about when we were doing that session with Marius as we were coaching him, that don't go into the lingo of what coaching type of people want results. They don't care about how you do it. That's something you got to figure out. but make it easier for them so that you become relatable and they know that you're speaking to them and their language that they can understand.
Yes. Yes, I totally agree. And I think that actually could be like the cornerstone, the foundation stone of how to become a more comfortable and more effective speaker. That this is like a foundational skill.
Right. But it's not that easy because a lot of us don't spend a lot of time. We think that what we know is what the other person is going to end up knowing. And that's not how, I think it's, again, like I said, part of the three reasons I always cite that makes it very difficult to give a good speech is time, fear, time, and method. And that's a time component right there, that you have to do the research, you have to talk to them, find out the language they're using, so that the language, because sometimes you have, that's part of the adaptability. You have to adapt to that. And some people are not willing to do it. They're stuck in their own language. Like yesterday, if you remember, when I was giving my 30-minute, I used some salty language. And you have to vary your language because sometimes you have to be relatable. And saying, well, I can't use salty language. Don't have hang-ups. Sometimes you have to use it. I mean, it's not going to kill you. Like I said, you're not going to get hurt. If you have to, go pray. Go to church and pray, like, get a rosary or something. Make an offering or something to God if you're really that affected by it. But, it's a matter of, like, if you want to help people, you have to talk their language. Otherwise, you can't help them. So I think it's one of those things that I don't do well. We all fall into our what makes us comfortable, but then we have to really spend time and really try to understand what, like, who you are, what is, like, you are a person who wants to constantly learn, you want to strive to do better. I have to speak to that. That's who you are. You are a professional woman. You have a tremendous amount of experience, both from different cultures, technical, all of that comes to you. And if I'm not speaking to you what makes you tick, then you're going to just tune me out. And that's a lot of work, right? Because I know you for some time now, but that's a lot of work. And a lot of people don't put in the time that's required to really be effective when it comes to giving an effective speech. So any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to add that one of the things from our previous coaching session that you mentioned, and also that you work with me, that is so very effective, is the idea of role playing. When we do, or even have someone else role play us, and that was just very insightful, and it opens up new perspectives for us, and also new ways of understanding who our audience is, because that's reflected in the person who's role playing, as well as our own experiences, how they're perceived by others. I just want to say, maybe you want to do a speech on role playing.
Yeah. So let me just comment on it, since if somebody's watching this, they may not be maybe familiar with what you just said there. So what Julie said is that occasionally what we do is this is part of our coaching session that we don't offer on this program. This is more like a one-on-one type of thing. So we're currently coaching a person, and what I decided to do was I brought Julie into the mix here, and this person, we are kind of playing him so that he can observe how we would do it acting. So we're kind of acting like we're actors, right? So we're acting based on how he is going to work with his clients. So it's an opportunity for him to see what we sound like if we were him. I don't know if this is making sense. We're kind of acting like him. So one time I acted like him, and Julie was asked like a person that I'm meeting at a networking event, and then I have to kind of walk him through having a conversation and get him interested in what I'm doing, and kind of just talk to him, have a conversation, and see if there's an interest, and then take it to the next level later on. And then I did then Julie acted like this person. So we were kind of role playing. So it gave this person an opportunity to observe. And from that, I think he was able to pick up quite a bit, like, oh, okay, I like this one better, I like that one better, rather than just telling him, hey, let me see what you're doing. And, oh, you should do this, you should do that. It doesn't work. It's better for that person to observe. So I want to thank Julie for helping out. And it's something that if you are watching this and you really want to help somebody, that's one of the most I think I just did it for the first time and I thought it was pretty effective. That it's something I'd like to use in the future. That role playing, what Julie said, is effective. It works. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, but you'll find out that it is very helpful. All right. So at this point, we'll take a brief pause and then move to our next segment. Thanks a lot, Julie. Okay, welcome back. My name is Jay Oza. This is Speech Talk Live, episode 34. And I'm here with Julie Wu Finkelstein. In this segment, I want to talk about this process, right? A lot of people take a course on public speaking, like the Coursera's Introduction to Public Speaking. Some of them take a course, an instructor-led course. So there are many different courses. Some of people go to Toastmasters, so people want to learn this skill. But I think there's one thing that you also need to do, because learning is kind of transient. You learn it, boom, but how much you're going to retain. Part of it is not only retention, part of it is also practicing. Part of it is remaining a student. You're not just a student when you're taking these classes. You remain a student all the time if you really want this skill, if you want to really develop this skill. So the purpose of this segment is, how do you remain a good student? So let's say, in my case, I have taken this course, Coursera's course, Introduction to Public Speaking. There, I learned many of the techniques from Dr. McGarity, who's the instructor from University of Washington. Okay, so now I'm done with the course. What happens next? Well, this is where you come in. Now, you can't go to Dr. McGarity and say, hey, Dr. McGarity, can you give me a new tip? He's not available, okay, to give you a new tip and techniques. You got to figure it out. And you have the knowledge. If you've taken this course and you've gone through the 10-week of video lectures and you've given the intro speech, the impromptu speech, the informative speech, the persuasive speech, you have all the tools. Now, you got to take it to the next level by becoming a student, remaining a student. That means you got to watch, when you're watching television, when you're watching speakers on the internet, like we review a lot of speeches here, that's our opportunity to remain students. Like we'll review Steve Jobs' speech, Barack Obama's speech, you name it. Then we'll review each other's speech, we get feedback, then we'll watch some debates, presidential debates, to learn some techniques from that. So it could be a television program. They're all around you. It could be one-on-one. Look at what somebody's doing well and learn from that. Oh, I could use that. That's what I do. Like when I see somebody doing something well, I immediately jot it down in my diary or my audio recorder, and I'll say, that's a good best practice. I need to incorporate that into my public speaking. But also look for something that you think that person could have done better. Like, for example, if somebody's using PowerPoints and you say, if I had to give that same speech, I would not have used PowerPoint. Put yourself in different scenarios. Like I sometimes put myself, at the in April, they have the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where they have a comedian who he has to give a comedy routine that he does, the person that they invite, and I pretend that I'm one of them. And if I had to give a joke about President Obama, what kind of joke would I tell that would be funny? So I work on that. I work on that, and I would the joke that I'm currently working on. It's not ready for prime time. Well, it may never be ready for prime time. Is that? But I think the number one reason that I think Barack Obama wanted to become president, he was Obamacare and all that. The number one reason was he wanted to improve his golf game. That was the number one reason. But he can't tell people elect me so I can improve my golf game. Nobody will elect him that. But you know what? He did improve his golf game, I think. Otherwise, we wasted. Otherwise, it was a big waste. But then life is going to change for him, right? Because when you're a president and you're saying, hey, Michelle, I have a meeting to go to, Michelle is not going to say, hey, Barack, I think you should stay back. When you're a president, wife doesn't tell the president to stay back and help me do some house chores. But let me tell you, after next January, when Barack says, hey, Michelle, I got to take off for 5 hours, she's going to say, hey, Barack, get your bony ass here. Help me cut some onions and prepare some food with me. He's not going to be able to go golf for 5 hours, okay? So good days are coming to an end. He doesn't realize it. And my advice to him is that use the last executive order and remain a president, because his golf game is going to go down the chute pretty quickly after he leaves. But anyway, these are the kind of situations you have to put yourself in. If you see a presidential debate, see what you could have done better. So I'll give you an example. I was watching the debate last night between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, and I like really watch it very closely, not from what they're saying, but what would I have done if I was in that situation, and based on what I know. And there was one particular incident where Hillary Clinton is taking offense because Bernie Sanders has been slamming her for a lack of judgment when it came to the Iraq war, first Iraq war vote. She supported George W. Bush. And Hillary Clinton comes back and says, well, yes, but if my judgment was so poor, then Barack Obama would not have hired me as his Secretary of State. At that point, Bernie Sanders had an opportunity to really take it to the next level and said, but Secretary Clinton, you did show bad judgment when you had your own private email server. I mean, that is not good judgment, but he didn't go there for whatever reason. There was an opportunity there. It would have been a fair shot because that's exactly what you did. You cannot have your private server that other countries could hack into. These are sensitive, secret information there. So I put myself in that situation, and that's what I think being a good student is. You got to put yourself in different situations. How would you do it? What kind of gestures would you use? How would you use the voice? You have to be that type of a student. Otherwise, you can't improve this skill. Speaking is like that. You got to be watching all the time in different situations on how you can be a better speaker. So the point here is that once you take a course, you're a student when you're taking the course, but then you're a student on your own, because now you have to learn from observing other people, and that's how you become, a good to great speaker. Julie, what do you think? Julie, you're still muted.
Hi, Jay. Yeah, for some reason, my computer has its own mind. I really liked what you said about you have to be a continuing student, and you have to continue to observe. You have to continue to live your life so that everything is fresh and there's continual learning. And then the discipline of practicing. And I like some of the suggestions you have. One is to keep a notebook or audio recorder and record the ideas right away. I don't do that. I did start doing the recording once a day, and that's been helping me a lot. And also see how someone can do better and then use that as a mimic. And finally, become a critic and see how someone is doing better, and then you can mimic that, and then see someone how they could do better, and then visualize that. And I like your example about Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. I think in my life, as you know, I really like to learn, and for me, I actually only since I started taking the public speaking class, I realized how important communication is and how deeply connected public speaking is to communication. And everything we do in life is communication, relationships, looking for a job, even talking to a salesperson. And the public speaking course actually provide us with the skills for all that, because we learn to listen, we learn to hear what the other people are saying, we analyze the message for logic and for persuasiveness, and then we go on to formulate our response. Or we start off with a goal, and then, as you said, tune into the audience and then make that message powerful, persuasive. So I thought I would just do the class in 2-3 months, and then that would be it. I've been in it over a year now. So I'm still at it. So thank you very much. I'm very grateful to have met you and other fellow students because that really enriched my life. Now I have friends all around the world. I have friends in India. I have a friend from Germany. And I also talk to people from Russia, from Morocco, from Spain, from Argentina. So my worldview has really expanded because of this speaking, learning to speak, and continue being a speaking student. So thank you. Yeah, great.
Right, and that's a good point because if you're going to connect with other people, you have to develop your speaking skills. Otherwise, it's hard to do that. And that's one of the things I sometimes I understand that people have other things to do, but they need to find ways to practice like you and I are doing. And we have become better at it because we keep doing it and we take it seriously. And I just think that a lot of people don't. And again, there's nothing you and I can do about it. But in speaking, what I realized is, and I kind of use this example. I didn't get to use it yesterday when we were speaking. That is, it's a sports analogy, especially like basketball. There's always a stat, and I'm sure you have a better way of phrasing this, but there's always a stat when you take a shot. Then you know that, oh my God, I only made 30% of my shot or 50% of my shot. But those are for the stats of the shots that you took. But there is no stat. Well, there is a stat, but nobody ever keeps a stat for the shots you just don't even take because there is no stat for that. The answer is 0, but nobody ever keeps that stat. And speaking is like that. We don't know what we are not getting because we're not a good speaker. You have few rare opportunities where you have to give high stakes speeches where, let's say, you meet somebody, you have a conversation, but ask yourself, like, what if you had good skills? Could you have taken that to a level that could have led to something else? If you don't, that means that's an opportunity you completely missed, and you'll never even know about it. They're like, I met this guy, he was an idiot, and then nothing happened. But perhaps he wasn't an idiot. Perhaps it was you, right? And this is something I'm kind of learning because I have to teach this to my son, that everybody you don't talk to, he said, well, Dad, I don't have too many friends and this and that. Okay, that happens to all the kids, right? I said, well, but have you reached out to anybody? Have you ever talked about what they're interested in? Because if you don't do that, then how do you know whether the person is maybe the person likes you. He has the same anxiety that you do, social anxiety, and having a conversation with you. So speaking is like that there are so many shots that you will never take because you just don't have the speaking skills. So getting back to this point about being a student, I think one of the things I don't think we've ever done a show on this, but there's this thing that people say, in order to write well, you write the way you speak. I think you must have heard that, right? That if you want to be a writer, people say, I don't know how to write. Well, somebody says, well, write the way you speak. I think it's not that simple. I think in order to do that, you got to be able to think first. You can't just say, I speak, because a lot of people don't speak well. And if you're not speaking well, you're not going to write well. And in order to speak well, you got to be giving some thinking. You got to do some thinking. You got to read books. You got to watch, TED Talks and think about these topics. What do they mean? How does it relate to my experience? That's work, folks. That's not that easy to do. I'll give you a quick example. So I read this book, Lean In, that I think, Julie, you have read this book too. It's by Sheryl Sandberg. She's a CEO of Facebook. And it's a very good book to tell women that they have to lean in, they have to sit at the table. There are all these different tips she gives that, women have to take charge. Don't expect, develop sponsors, mentors, etc. And that's how you're going to get ahead in the corporate world. But there's one thing she never really addresses. And I wrote a blog about this. And what I said, and this was probably 3 years ago when this book had come out, I said, still, there is one thing still missing in there. That you can do all of that, but there are people in power that are never going to see it the way she wants to. Because basically what she's saying, that people should see it her way. And the reality is that people in power don't see it that way. So what I suggested at that time was that maybe she should recommend companies adopting this rule from NFL called the Rooney Rule. And the Rooney Rule was instituted because a lot of minorities, primarily African American coaches and executives, were not getting hired because these owners are strictly mostly white. So the Rooney Rule was just created where if there is a position that becomes available, they have to interview at least one African American candidate, right? So at least they can say that we at least, whether it's fair or not, but at least they got a chance to meet. But what it did was, so in the beginning you said, come on, they can just interview but never hire them. Okay, in the beginning that might be the case, but then what they realized was that these people, by being interviewed, they may not get the first job, but now they're getting that access. So let's say I am an assistant coach or an offensive coordinator. I get an interview as a coach, or if I was an executive. Now let's say I'm African American. At least now they get to meet me one-on-one. I have that opportunity. Maybe that first job, maybe it was just going through the motion. Maybe it's a second one going through the motion. But sooner or sooner, word gets around that, hey, this guy now knows them. So you are now networking with them. You had that access. And sooner, many African Americans started becoming coaches. Many African Americans started getting executive position. So now NFL realized that, hey, we still have a problem. And the problem is that women are not getting into the executive ranks in the NFL. So now the Rooney Rule is being adopted to also interview women. And I've noticed that Facebook even started doing the same thing. They even mentioned that they now realize that the best way for women to get an opportunity at the executive level is to adopt something like the Rooney Rule, which came from NFL. Now, this is something that I had mentioned 3 years ago when they weren't even talking about it. So my point is not that I should get any kind of award for this, but it's part of the thinking you have to do. I took a concept of lean in, and I took the concept of Rooney Rule, which is an NFL. I kind of married them together and saying, listen, if you really want progress in the corporate world for women, then you also need, the women can do all that because women are educated. They got MBAs from Harvard and all these other schools, and they work hard, they do all that. But you still need a rule like this. So now Facebook is coming around saying that, yes, this rule is important. And similarly, even NFL now is realizing that, hey, we need to expand the Rooney Rule to also include women. So part of speaking well means you got to think. When you read a book, you got to say, okay, how do I think about this? How do I speak about this topic? And then you will realize that when somebody is saying that, saying, hey, I came up with that idea. So being a student is not just looking at a speaker, but then also saying that, hey, I have done some thinking myself, that I can give a different perspective on this. And that's what makes you a good speaker. Not just parroting somebody's thoughts, but come up with your own thoughts, because that's what makes you, that will make you a thought leader and much more interesting person to talk to. Julie, any closing comments? Since you read the Lean In book, maybe you have some thoughts on that.
Well, I was surprised that they had to do that, because I remember when I was a manager, we were required to have a diversity profile. So I think we were required to, well, maybe not legally, but maybe that's the whole thing. We were encouraged to hire on a diversification basis. Me being Asian female, I am a diversification, right? I'm a double dipper, right? But I did hire a lot of black women, black men, white men, white women. So my team was actually pretty diverse, and I think that was good for everybody, And I like your Rooney's Rule, and I like the idea of merging different ideas to come up with the new ideas. There was recent talk on Google. I can't remember the name, but he's a professor, and he's also sits in the House of Lords, and he wrote down the evolution of ideas. He wrote this book, and basically he said nothing's new. Everything. He says that ideas have sex with each other, and then you spawn new ideas. And his whole point was, individuals are not that big a deal. The ideas almost have a life of their own. And he gave the example, like, had Edison did not invent the electric bulb, a month or two later, someone would have announced it. And so also there's a lot of context like who is the real discoverer, because everything happens in kind of clusters anyways. So yeah, I really like the idea of what you call merging in different ideas to come up with new ideas.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think what is the name of that guy you mentioned? Because I think some people call that idea sex. That when you take different ideas and marry them, they call that, like, that's the term I've heard people use is called idea sex. So there we go. I think we covered this. This is something we need to come back to, because I could spend more time on this. Like, it's in the book. Like, some of the things that I'm saying here is going to be, I'm actually going to have to look at this, because I think some of the ideas I just came up on the fly, and I may include that in my book, because I think one of the things that people kind of struggle with is that they take courses, and it's not enough, because taking courses will give you skills, but speaking is not just knowing what to say, but it's like, where do these thoughts even come from? How do you even get that? And that's a whole different ballgame that nobody ever talks about, that speaking is thinking, actually. And you got to bring something to the table. Like, if you're going to go meet somebody, you got to, you can't just, like, I call that, you got to move from small talk to mid talk to big talk. So that means you got to do some work. You can't just say, hey, talk to me. I've taken this course, Introduction to Public Speaking. Well, that's all it did. You just took the course, but there's more work that needs to be done. All right, so we'll take a pause and do our last segment. Okay, welcome to Speech Talk Live. My name is Jay Oza, and this is episode number 34, and I have Julie Wu Finkelstein with me today. And in this segment, going to focus on something that I picked up from this podcast that I was listening to. The podcast is called, and I recommend people listen to it. They don't do that many podcasts. It seems like they do one every 2 weeks or one every month, it seems like, because I don't see that many that they do. Like, it's not like this show, they do one every week. But when they do have time, they focus on talking to somebody who's either currently getting ready to give a TED Talk or has already given a TED Talk, and they want to learn from that, because their whole goal is that these two hosts, they want to give a TED Talk. So they want to learn from these people. And in the process, I think they're providing a service, helping us to learn what these people have gone through, or the training that they had to go through, and what their experience was all like, and how do they get to be on that stage to give that speech. So one of the speaker that they had invited on their show, his name was Brian Kramer. He's an author. I think he writes in the marketing space, social media marketing space. And I think he gave a TED Talk. And they asked him, like, what is the most important tip that he got from the TED coaches, speaking coaches? And one thing he mentioned that was kind of interesting, this is where I picked up this. He said I had to go through 300 hours of training that he had to spend, coaching, I should say, coaching with TED in order to give a TED Talk. And they work with him on everything. And these people were like kind of jealous. They said, you know what, just for that alone, it would be worth giving a TED Talk, because you get 300 hours. I mean, think about that. The coaches are probably people from Hollywood and, famous. These are good coaches. That's what they do. So they know. And he said that one important thing he learned that he had not really given much thought to, which sounds kind of obvious. And they said that you begin with the end. So the way you want to conclude, right? He said that, people always say that end with a bang, right? That's like thing, end with the bang. And what they said that a lot of times people may not be there till the end. Why not bring that right up in the front? So if they are there, I mean, you can end with the bang, but if they're not there, then that becomes, a waste of an effort, right? But bring that in the front. And then if you have, you can also include that at the end. But that was a key message. So I kind of agree with that. And what he said was that they want you to do that in the first, like, 15 seconds. You've got to get people's attention. It's something that seems obvious, right? We all think that, get to the point right away, get to the point, don't waste their time. And TED really focuses on that you've got to begin with the end, start with the end. Because if you don't, then the people may not be there listening to you attentively till the end. And that's something I think we should all I try to do that all the time. I always let people know what is the main point that I want them to take away. And then I'll also conclude with that. But if I don't get their interest in the beginning, then I'm not, because especially I record a lot of videos. I have no idea whether they're going to be, watching the entire video. But I know that if they are watching it the first 10, 15 seconds, they are going to watch that. So my job is to make sure that they get to the end. And I think it's a simple tip that we should all follow, that begin with the end, because you want to get, especially with people that are so distracted in their attention, there's so much attention deficit, you've got to let them know right away why this talk, they should listen, give you more time, and hopefully get to the end. Julie, what do you think? And how do you do it when you, so when you talk about, like, how do you start? Like, you give speeches, you record speeches. How do you start with the end?
So, Jay, this is very interesting, because one of the things I've always struggled with is when I write a paper or whatever, is what's the introduction and what's the end, right? So it makes sense for you to say bringing the end in mind. So I think that's great. And actually, like, if I learned the sandwich technique, which is the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. So there's a CEO, Dennis Chikasian, in CNA Insurance, a Fortune 500 company I used to work at. He says, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So that's what I always try to do in any significant communication. Even when I'm listening to you, I try to figure out what's the message in those three parts. In terms of going beyond, I want to take this beyond speaking and looking at some of the different areas and opportunities that we can apply this concept to. So, for example, in a newspaper, we are always taught that if you're a journalist, you want to answer the what, why, the 5 W's right in the beginning, right? That's getting to the end first. In any kind of envisioning process, like visualizations, and you can talk about neuro-linguistic programming, which I do not consider what Tony Robbins does, but let's just say neuro-linguistic programming and Tony Robbins. In many of the law of attractions, and even to me, the whole Lotus Sutra and the Shakti Gawain, who is an esoteric one on doing energy work, they always say there's 2 levels of creation. You want to start off with defining in your mind's eye what is the end, what you want to get to. As such, even like a classic, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, he says, begin with the end in mind. And then Chairman Tang, in one of my favorite books, Search Inside Yourself, he has us go through a eulogy of what we want people to say to us, because it brings what we are about and how we want to live our life like a North Star or a laser beam. It really clarifies our direction. I think that coming back to the speech, then I think when you bring the end in mind and then you start going for it, you give the audience a path to follow, because they know where you're going to end up and they know where you're at. So always they don't get lost in the shuffle of your speech. So I think that's a great idea, of course. Thank you.
Yeah, you remember that email that you had sent me, I think it was a few days ago, about some guy who was giving a talk on how to get speaking engagements? I don't know. It's not the guy's last name. I think.
Yes.
The guy's last
Grant.
name is Grant Baldwin or something.
Grant Baldwin. Yeah.
Right. So I did watch that, and I don't know whether he has. He may have a replay or something. He said he was going to have it for. He had some good tips. There's nothing that I could really use. One thing that I did get from that his introduction was, I mean, the first 30 minutes when he was teaching you were basic stuff. And the one that I don't have, which I thought was a good tip. So there's one tip I always look at. If I get one tip, then it was worth my time. And the one tip he gave was that he said, have a video, but not the video of you telling people that I'm a speaker, I can come and give a speech. Have a video of you actually giving a speech. So like if you are giving a speech of an audience, videotape that and include that footage as part of your, that's what people want to see. They don't want you to say, hey, I'm Jay Oza, I can come and give a good speech to you, just hire me. They said that doesn't work, and in fact you shouldn't even do that. That if you are a speaker, show them doing it. If you're a writer, you show them your work, right? So show them where you actually have given a speech, and it doesn't have to be a paid speech. He said you might even be better off even if you speak in front of an empty auditorium or something, and just give a speech and looks and that footage, because what they're showing you, they're not going to show the audience anyway. But he said show people you giving a speech on a particular topic, and I thought that was an interesting tip. But what I wanted to point out was that at the end they always want to sell you something, like if you take this course and that course. And my thing is that why not just do that right in the beginning? Like, why do they want to wait till the end and saying, listen, this is what we're going to do, but we want to now, like, that's the end, right? The end, what they want to do is they want you to buy this particular course, right? That's what they're selling, because he's giving up his time. And in the beginning, he didn't do that. And I was just thinking, after just what you just said, that let's say if I had to do a show like that where I'm going to sell my online course, right? And I would say, listen, and if you're not paying for it, right, then I should let you know that the purpose of this call is that I'm offering this online course, but before I go into it more detail, I'm just letting you know that this course is available, and now I'm going to give you some of the tips that you need. And if you think that you want to know more, then this course is available. Like that. I'm not saying the way I did it is the right way, but I always wonder, like, why they always like wait till the end. Like, why not just let them know? Because it's coming at the end anyway. And I never understood that marketing. Why, when these people do these shows, why not just tell them that this is what the offer is? But before we go into this in detail, let me now talk about here are the things so you can determine whether this is something you really want or need. Okay. I don't know. I just I just thought of that because every time I watch these shows, I know that they have something to sell, but why not just sell it right in the beginning? And then just say, okay, now hang around. I'll tell you whether this is whether I'm going to live up to the promise on why you should buy that. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? I just noticed it. I wouldn't have noticed it, but since I remember you had sent that to me and I actually watched it, and then this topic came along, begin with the end. And I'm like, if the main purpose of the call is to sell something, offer something, why not make the offer right in the beginning? You don't have to go into the detail, but then saying, okay, I'm going to get back to it later and go into detail on exactly what you're getting and what you're going to get out of it. But at least let them know that there's an offer right up front. Hello? Oh, I think I lost you, Julie. So I'll just keep talking till Julie gets back on. And so that's an interesting thing to think about, that whenever you are talking, don't wait till the end. And there's a risk in that, because if you wait till the end, the question is that you are now putting so much pressure on yourself that you have to be so good. And the more time you take, you risk people tuning out. And it also could appear like a kind of a gimmicky thing that, okay, he wants me to, like, what is at the end? I know, like, some people like to create that anticipation till the end, but I just think that, I don't know, it's something worth trying to let the people know what the offer is, then go into what you're giving away for free, some of the training you're giving, some idea what it would be like, so they get experience, and then go into the offer in more detail. So these are the kind of things that we have to be careful about. It's not just when it comes to a speech. It could apply even to things like marketing message. It could apply to having a one-on-one conversation, and one of the things that I do as part of my coaching people is this method that I dubbed it called the lean speech method, where we are kind of bringing the end in the beginning. So we do begin with the end, and that's part of what I used to to call it is a log line. And the one word that we use is the word that will appear most number of times. So I was just, while you were going through that, Julie, I was just kind of talking, filling in time here before I go back to you. And what I was saying was that when we use the lean speech method, that the one word, why that one word is so important, because that word needs to appear the most. Because that's the main thing that you're trying, like yesterday we were doing a session where the word dreams came up. That word dreams has to be in there used a lot. Otherwise, that word isn't that important. So in your case, let's say if it's a result, what you want to focus on for your stretching, that word, I think right now you use the word stretch. And I said that what you want to focus on is the result. It could be, I don't know, relief, stretch, whatever it is. And that's the word that has to come out more. That's the word that you have to use the most, so that people know that, oh, this will give me relief. This will give me relief, because that's the word they'll latch on to. Relief, 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 like that, Because if it's a stretch, means you have to do it. You want to think about what they're going to get out of it. I'm going to get relief, 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 something like that. Anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Jay, I think those all your points are really good. In terms of the Grant Baldwin and having a video made of you giving the speech, I really think that's a really great idea. And in terms of why wait to the end, I remember, we all had to do job interviews, and you never talk money to the end. So maybe what you want to do is you want to tell them what you want to do, but you don't tell them all the terms to the end, because you want to kind of soften up and check out what the openings are, like you say, resonate with the person or the audience. So maybe you kind of say, this is where I want to go, and then you navigate yourself to that destination. Yeah, this one word thing, I missed the email you got, but I thought it was really great. So maybe we can have a discussion on your whole lean speech method. I'm still challenged with that one word. So maybe it is relief.
Yeah, I think the way to look at that one word is what do you want the audience to feel like this is the word, because that's the word you're going to keep using it throughout. Like if they go away with no words, that means the speech wasn't even heard, right? But if there's this one word that you want them to remember, what is that one word? Is it you came up with stretch, and what I'm saying is there may be a better word. That's all. I'm not saying that the word you came up with is wrong. I'm saying that if it's stretch, then it looks like that they have to do it, and that's not the word that they're gonna remember. Like, stretch, I got to do it. But if it's something they're gonna get, then stretch becomes a mechanism, right? It's a method. It's a way of getting that relief. Then they'll remember that relief is what I want to focus on. So it's for you to kind of get to their brain and saying, okay, this is the word I want you to remember. Relief, stress-free, relief, stress-free. It's like, I don't know, there's some kind of what do you call that? Hypnotizing them, like, think of this word, like mantra.
Mnemonics. Mnemonics.
Like keep on like harping on that. Think of this word. Think of this. Just want you to think of that. Let me just point out one thing, and I'm going to be taking a contrary point of view on this. When you said in a job interview, don't bring up the money in the beginning, I used to think that too. But then from experience, I've now decided that any advice I ever give to people, I always tell them, you better make sure that that money is, because at the end, it's all going to come down to money. And if money is going to be, because I'll tell you an example what happened. I had interviewed with this defense contractor. It was Fort Monmouth nearby. And I went for an interview. And I mean, they like really, I had to go through I had to meet with 9 people. And at the end, the guy who was the one meets with me and said, oh, by the way, you do know that this is an entry-level position, right? And I said, no. I said, do I look like a person who would be looking for an entry-level position? This was when I'd already had 20 years of experience. So I said, no, actually, I was looking for, I thought this was for an advanced position. And then he told me that the salary was like almost like half of what I was at that time expecting, right? And at that time, I think I was 120, and he said, oh, we can bring you in around 60, 70 or something like that. I said, no, my last salary was more like 120. I wouldn't take a salary that low. He said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you this was an entry-level position." So from that experience, I've learned that always make sure that the money is not going to be an issue, because if it is, then you don't want to, because sometimes these companies have they have a fixed thing. They cannot negotiate at all on the salary. And we all think like they can. So I always like to get the money part out of the way quickly before wasting a lot of time. So otherwise you're going for these interviews, you're trying hard, and then it's all going to be like, oh, now you can only offer me this much. Oh, my hands are tied. I can't offer you that much. So I know what you're saying, that's the advice you always get, like discuss the money. And I always say the toughest negotiation, you got to get it out early.
Well, maybe it's more for entry-level position, but the key point is, did they mention money? Because if they don't mention money, then they're not interested, right? No matter what they say.
Well, they like me. That's what I'm saying. That the
no,
money.
Yeah, I mean, in your case, it doesn't work. I'm saying like for entry level.
Oh yeah, entry level.
If I know I'm an entry level person, I'm applying for an entry level job, then the key question is, did they talk about money?
Right. No, I agree. Because when my daughter was getting an entry level job, I just told her the same thing. I said, for entry level, the money is not the issue. It's how much you're going to learn, because the money you make is trying to not take a job for a couple of thousand here and there. It's not going to make a big difference. If you're getting the right opportunity, the first job, don't bring up money as the number one reason. Get some experience under your belt, but then after that, definitely bring up the money first, because then you have experience. So now you should be able to dictate how much you're worth.
I think that's a really good advice as a consultant with my own company. I think that there's a lot of times that I waste my time making a sales call, not really knowing what the price is, what the client has available. So it merits investigation and discussion.
I always one of my things that I was working on later on is that I've been writing a lot of blogs on this, is negotiation. And negotiation is also another one of those things that people are not good at. And we talk about speaking, so it's kind of tied to this, Julie, that speaking is not just speaking, applies to everything, right? It applies to sales, it applies to negotiation, and you need the right language. Like, how do you, like you said, role playing, by the way, becomes very important when it comes to negotiation. So at this point, I think we're going to wrap the show up and then leave some time to see if there's anything we need to close out. Okay, so I'm going to.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Let me just close out the show. So at this point, we're done with the show. Thank you for watching. And as I like to say, you are how you speak. So keep getting better, keep improving, keep practicing, and people will see you the way you speak. So good luck, and we'll see you next week. Okay. So we get to the miscellaneous part of it, which doesn't appear. Okay, so let's see. So where we are. So when are you going to be able to get that book to me?
What book?
No, that draft. You wanted me to take a look at the draft or something? Or
right. I have a version, but I want to rewrite it now, of course, because of all the insights I got here. How about this? I'll send it to you today, but don't spend more than like 10-15 minutes just to get a gut feel. Okay.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. So send it to me, and I'll spend some time over the weekend to
but no more than 20 minutes, because I'm going to rewrite it all anyways.
No. First one is just to kind of get the overall, and I'll get that to you.
Thank you so much.
And then, okay, so. Yeah, so I don't know, after you left yesterday, Marius and I had a very interesting discussion around pricing.
Yeah, I could hear you guys talk, but I couldn't join in. I didn't listen to it though.
Yeah, thanks for recording that. I had to go back, and I'm actually going to use that, because what I had put together for him, I thought that was very interesting, that I'm going to tweak it and include that as part of my best practices, like not include his name or anything, but like, here's an advice that I gave to somebody, because I liked it on how to approach it. Because one of the things that I was advising him is, because I said I had run into a similar situation that when you deal with a friend of somebody or a relative or family, those are very difficult clients because they think that you'll always give it to you for free. And I said, at some point, he's kind of torn because at this point he needs to get his practice going. And I said, just offer her a package of 3 sessions, and that's it. And if she likes it,
I heard that. That's great.
I said, rather than, because what he was telling me is that, what do you think if I start with the amount and then discount? I said, that kind of comes across gimmicky to me. This is just my impression. I said, just give her, when you discount something, that means when somebody gives me a discount, like when I see somebody, oh, the total cost is $6,000, but if you make a decision right now, it's worth only $499. I'm like, wait a second.
Right.
You're dropping something from $6,000 to $499, that means it's free practically.
Right.
If something is $6,000, you don't drop it to $499. You just say, listen, this is a special deal, and I'm off easy, because it said that the psychology is such. I said, I know that's what people always say, but to me, this is a relationship things, right? If they don't trust you, then the pricing you give, they're not going to trust you on that either when you're dropping it down. So I said, it's probably better to just give her a 3-session package and just leave it at that.
Yeah, I really like that. I might adopt that. I'm not sure where I'm going, but I thought that was really good.
Yeah, because what's really helping me is that these are the same kind of conversations that I'm going to have to have with people, right?
Yeah, I thought you guys did great. I know he got a lot out of it. I was going to check with you. So it was good for you too then, right?
Yeah, because everything I'm telling him is almost like, it's almost like, kind of like, what do you call that? What's that? Mastermind? Is that what I call it? Mastermind, where, he's helping me, I'm helping him.
Right.
And so we kind of have a little mastermind club there, me, you, and Marius.
Yes.
So what this does is that we're just there to help each other out. Like if he wants to discuss something, then he just brings it up. So here's the deal. So we 3 are initial member of this mastermind. If anybody else wants to join, we're going to have to charge them something.
No, masterminds you don't charge.
No, some of them do actually.
Oh, really?
Oh, some of them are very expensive, by the way. Some of the masterminds are like really, really. I'll tell you one thing. Right now we can't charge, but like once I have a practice going, and if I'm going to be involved in a mastermind, and if somebody wants to join the mastermind, then we should be able to charge, because we have there's a lot of value that they get out of being in this mastermind.
Well, okay, and that's great.
That's down the line, but I'm just saying that never give away, because the thing is, once you start giving away things like, because listen. For you, me, and Marius to get this far, we've put in a lot of work, Julie.
Yeah.
And if somebody wants to be part of that, then there has to be some cost, because they're getting so much benefit from being part of this, that there has to be some value that they have to pay for.
Okay.
All right. So anything else that you want to bring up?
We were going, you said next week, if you want to, I could take a segment. I think I would like that. I could do. I'm not going to be able to do a record, because every time I do a recording, you don't think I'm ready.
No. Well, you're never going to be ready. I'm never ready. Like the segments that I did this time, I just did it like with very little time. But I just in fact, some of them I wish I could do it again, but I had to get it done. So the show that we put on today was done on a very short notice. But that's part of, because I definitely want to keep. The consistency is more important than perfection. Right.
So quantity over quality. Yeah.
Well, because we got to discuss a lot of topics that we wouldn't have if we had decided I have to make sure that the show. See, if it's too perfect, then it's too scripted. So sometimes I don't want it to be that perfect. I just want the overall framework. Then take it. Then we can just go in any direction that. You may say something like, that's job interview thing you just came up. That's something that wasn't part of the script. So we're kind of going outside the script, which is good. That's what the discussion topics are, that it allows us to go outside the script and kind of improvise. And sometimes there's a lot of information, because sometimes when I say something, you will come back and have your own feedback or an input or even challenge me. And that'll make me think. And that's the job, right? That's how... It makes me suddenly think wait a second, that time when you said about I was just using the word high stakes, and then I changed. If you notice, I use high
Yeah.
opportunity, and that's because that's what you did. You said, Jay, this is you're missing something. Sometimes it's not only high stakes; they're also high opportunity. There may not be the stakes means that you could lose or win, but high opportunity. If you don't do it, then nothing happens. But if you do it, then you could win. So you should take advantage of that. So now, after getting that feedback, I started including that in my intro.
Okay, so I'll do a segment on how these stretches can help the back.
No, narrow your focus down. I don't want you to because otherwise I think what happens is if you make it too broad, narrow it down to like one thing. Like what is the one thing, like pick one pose. So today I want to talk about this.
Yeah, I'd rather do this pose thing. I prefer that.
Yeah, so you got 12 poses. So pick one pose and go deep into that. So like, I don't know, pick a pose.
I'll just take forward bend. That's a
okay. So just say, okay. So as you know, I'm doing this book, but today I'm going to just focus on this one pose, forward bend. So then go into it, like what exactly is forward bend? If you have a picture or something, just explain it, like just show it and saying this is a forward bend. And then why should you do that? What do you benefit you get out of it? And then if somebody has a pain, how should you start with that? And just kind of go into it as much as you can and saying, there are a lot of benefits for some, like start with the easy one first. Like if you're just starting out, here's the first pose you should try to do. And then who shouldn't do it and who should do it, like that. So that people can say, oh yeah, I get it. I think I should try that. And at the end, motivate the people to do it,
Okay, cool.
All right, so take a pose and do it doesn't have to be that long. Do a 5 minute, even if it's 3 minutes, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
All right, then I think we're done then, right?
Yeah. Are you a Marius meeting again, or was that it?
No, we're gonna meet because he's going to have that conversation with that woman, right?
Oh, cool.
So
okay.
I think that at some point he's going to give us an update on what happened and then see if he needs further reinforcement. What I told him is that just be compassionate, but let her know that, this is a part of your practice. And one thing we did do was at some point I said he's going to, because this is not related to what he wants to do. He's providing some relationship coaching.
Right.
What he really wants to do is do business coaching, right? So I said, when you're ready to do business coaching, let me know, because that's what I was doing before. But the reason I never turned that into a book was because I only had one example and that didn't go too well. So I said, I have a lot of things that we can discuss and see what you think. And so that's why the company name is 5 Tool Group, because I had these 5 disciplines that you need to bring to make a business successful, people who do not have like a large corporation. And that's what I was bringing to it. But then what happened was I never was able to get to the case studies that I needed to include in a book. And you can't write a book if you don't have case studies. So I said, if you're interested, I can kind of walk you through what I've already developed. And then so that's where we left off.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you may be interested in that too, because
sure, I'm always big.
That's how the name 5 Tool Group came up. I can go through like an example, because I've actually done quite a bit of work in this, but I'll make it so that it's understable and it's interesting.
I think I read your blog on it. Did you do a blog on that?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a lot. One more thing. I have a friend. Actually, I have 3 friends. We're going to get together and create like what you call the mastermind group, but on creating online courses. Udemy. I was looking at Udemy, but you said look at Teachable. If I start a little group for that, would you be interested?
Yeah, sure. If these people are all serious or what?
Different levels of ability, but they're all serious. One woman is a professor.
Oh, okay.
And she has a curriculum, so she might take part of it and put online courses together. Another one's a friend of mine, and she's a healer. She doesn't have too much business experience, but she's a great healer. So I want her to expand her revenue base.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no. The main thing that it all comes down to these courses is marketing, right?
Right.
That part is hard to crack. Like, how do you market it? So there are all these Teachable. I think they sent me these links that if I can get it, I'll send it to you. Where these people were talking about all different ways to market your courses, whether it's on Pinterest, email, all sorts of techniques. And what what kind of got overwhelming for me was there's just so many of them that after a while it seems like you have to become like a marketing expert. And I said, "Look, right now I need to focus on the content." So right now I'm more focused on the content, even though I know all the things that are out there, but I can't focus on that until I have the content. It's like, chicken and the egg. Like, what do I do? Like, do I focus on the content or do I focus on the marketing? So the way I'm looking at it is, once I have the content all nailed down, like the book is all done, it's ready now to go, then I can start focus. I mean, I have an idea on how I want to do the courses, but then even I'm looking at it like, okay, so I have the book, I have the courses, but then if I don't have the marketing, nothing's going to happen.
Exactly.
So I have to really, so the thing about this mastermind group is to focus on the content. It's hard to help somebody, but the marketing is something we can exchange views on what's working, what's not working.
Well, there's a technology of just enrolling in online class, and then there's the marketing. The marketing, I think you, me, and Marius could have another mastermind group. I have a lot of really unique ideas on marketing, and I'm sure you have too. I think we could just really shoot the shit for like 40 minutes. So I don't know when you guys are ready, and I'm certainly not. So maybe after we get the books.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, my book is in first draft. I've gotten some feedback that I need to incorporate. I have to think about what you have written down, and then I'll incorporate some of that, because now I think I have to go through that session we did. I haven't listened to it yet, so I'll get a chance this weekend to listen to it, and then once I do that, I'll be making some changes. And I think one thing I did pick up from what you said was that I should just focus on this part one. Is a book itself. That don't try to merge, because then the book is going to get all muddled up. And there are 3 books here, so focus on this one book. Make it, even if it's short, it's much better than to have a big book that is totally all over the map, all over the place.
Plus, most people won't read your book anyways.
They'll just look at the title and the book cover. So the book cover.
If they're good, they might look at the table of contents.
I'll give you some, like my Marius did. He had some names. I have some names that I've already picked out. So at one point, I'll send them to you. See which one you think.
Well, why don't we do a brainstorm, the 3 of us?
Yeah, right.
He's pretty intuitive, and he has he has a global perspective because of his German. He lived in Europe, so he has a very deep insight.
So let me ask you one question. I didn't get to ask him. He's German, right?
Yeah.
And he doesn't want, and his background, he's an author, and he's also a lawyer. What's his background?
He's an author. He wrote 2 books with his father.
About what?
I think about his biography. It was actually pretty interesting. I guess his father was part of the resistance to Hitler.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Interesting.
So that's his life story. But they have, he was also, actually, he told me his background. He started out as like a forest ranger. He was working in the environment and stuff. Then he became a lawyer. And then all the time they had a family real estate business, and so he was the president for a while. So he's kind of got this global view of environment and systems, and then he's got this view of business law, environmental law, and ecology, and then he's got this real estate thing about money. So I tend to attract people who are eclectic and creative.
Yeah, right.
So I think I think that I don't think he's really acculturated into America.
When did he come here?
I think a year ago.
Oh, a year ago. Okay.
And I think there's 2 things that's going to he needs to do to help his business. Is if he wants to focus on corporations, he doesn't have that language. Like the way he speaks is colloquial and familial because he's speaking English with his wife, who's an acupuncturist. So he's not getting access into corporate America. Right. And so the way he's showing himself is too casual. You know what I mean?
Right. See, I didn't want to go into it because I don't know his story, and he hasn't shared it with me. Because one thing I was thinking is that you have to look at what your strengths are, and his strengths are that he speaks German. That's his strength, right? he knows he understands Europe. So
Right.
the question is that he can act as a business coach for companies who want to get a better understanding on how to get into the European market, and they understand, because to speak to somebody European is not same as speaking to somebody who's an American. So rather than trying to go for an American client in the American, he might be better off saying, this is what my niche is, that I can help you connect with the people, and so that you, like, for example, let's say, okay, so I'll give you an example.
No, I got it. Vice versa. He could help Europeans to penetrate the. I gotta go in a couple
Yeah,
of
right.
minutes.
Both of them.
He could help Europeans to penetrate America, and can help Americans to penetrate Europe, because that's
But he
his
has to
linkage.
pick one. He has to pick one, because
No, I don't think so.
in the beginning you do, because otherwise you'll be all over the map. Like, okay, do I focus on the European clients or do I focus on the American clients? So the question is, once he has a really good, it all depends on where the business comes from, right?
It's where your first client drives your direction, right?
Yeah.
So, but I did recommend him like certain groups, like the Council of Foreign Relations and things like that.
I think the main thing is that I think main thing he needs is that how he markets himself. Like if somebody came to Marius and saying, Marius, what? Because see, first of all, he speaks German. He is from Germany, right? So that's given. He already has that. He has more credibility. If I came to him and said, Marius, I would be interested in working with you if you can help me take my coaching practice, speaking coaching to the German clients who want to communicate with Americans on how to do it. Marius, can you help me? How do I penetrate that? That there are a lot of Germans who come here, they want to speak to Americans. I can help them learn how to speak to Americans, right? Instead of using soccer example, I can tell them, learn a little bit about football, and I can tell them how they can connect with Americans if they know about American football, etc. And I can help them. There, I could use Marius. But if it's something related to America where he doesn't come across as somebody who really understands the American culture or something, then he loses his credibility that way.
Right.
And that's what I was thinking, that next time we can talk to him if that's something. I thought he just wanted to try something completely different, and I'm just saying that he has a lot of advantages that he should leverage.
Right. Let's do a three-way brainstorming.
Okay, sounds good.
Something. Okay, my dear.
Okay.
Thank
Julie,
you.
Enjoy your weekend, and I hope your husband is getting better. I thought I saw him. He was like walking, right?
Yeah.
He's walking now?
He's walking without a cane sometimes. So that's
great. He's been, I hope he makes a full recovery and is able to do what he likes to do.
Thank you. He's a brave soul.
All right. Tell him I said hello.
Okay,
Bye.
thanks, Jay. Bye.
Bye.